This podcast is a collaboration between Costard and Touchstone Productions and the Dads from the Crypt podcast.
Sit. To what do I owe this extreme pleasure, sir? Anything wrong, sir?
Wrong? Why should you think of anything being wrong?
Hello and welcome to another episode of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast. I'm Alan Katz. As we wrap up another year and a great season, we ask the same question that Mr. Deltoid asks in A Clockwork Orange. What could possibly be wrong? Well, when you get to work with actors like Malcolm McDowell and Aubrey Morris, nothing is wrong whatsoever. You know, Gil and I have said many times on this podcast that one of the great thrills of doing Tales from the Crypt was that we got to work with the most amazing actors on our little TV show. Pinch me moments abounded. I was a student of film growing up. Clockwork Orange was a seminal moment in my own understanding of cinema and what you could do with it. To get to work with the actors who were in A Clockwork Orange, that would have seemed impossible when I was younger. It still seems kind of far-fetched now. And yet it happened. Pinch me. Both Aubrey Morris, Mr. Deltoid, and Malcolm McDowell, Alex, are Tales from the Crypt alumna. Malcolm starred in the Reluctant Vampire episode. Aubrey starred in Till Death, and also was one of the few bright spots in Bordello of Blood. Alas, Aubrey is no longer with us, but Malcolm is doing just fine. He sat in with us on episode 33 and told some amazing stories, especially about making Caligula, another prime example of how not to make a movie, or porn for that matter.
You know, the film was a total fuck-up. But I kept saying to Gore, well...
That's novelist Gore Vidal, the screenplay's author.
You know, you took your name off it. I'm now stuck having to do it.
He didn't give back the money, did he?
I don't know.
No, he didn't. He did not give back the money.
Of course he did.
He got paid $225. He got paid a nice chunk of change for those days.
Oh, yeah.
And he, hey, man.
I know.
How ashamed are you really? The casting became an issue. Maria Schneider, and she just passed away recently, unfortunately, a terrific actor.
Yeah.
She was supposed to play Drusilla. She quit while filming her first sex scene, right in the middle of working with you.
No, she never got.
She never got that far?
No. She got as far as a costume fitting and coming up to do a little rehearsal.
Oh, the stories people tell. Good God, it was nothing like that. Go ahead, carry on, please. Good.
She went down to the seamstress, and you know, we had Danilo Donati, one of the great designers of all time. He did all Fellini's movies. A genius.
Such talented people on this
He
project.
did the costumes and the sets. And, you know, the costumes were literally one stitch here, one stitch there. That was it. Open, and you wore a diaper underneath it. She went down to the seamstress and had them sew up the sides of the dress so that
sure
the scene was me fondling her breast, because, you know, I'm her brother basically, and to be fondling her breast to a modern audience is sort of outrageous, but of course in Caligula's time it was quite normal.
Yeah.
They were the only people you could trust with your family, and that's basically who you stayed with. And I tried to get into the dress, and I went, wow, how did you manage to get this? And Tinto Brass went ballistic.
That's what happened.
And he really lost it. When he found out what she'd done, he lost it. And she sort of went, fuck you. And he went, oh, fuck you, get off my set. And
Gielgud, you got to work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you did finally get to work with John in a feature. There's a story about you and John talking about personal finances, that John was complaining about having to do movies like this.
Yes, he said, my accountant, you know, I've been told I've got to cut back. And I went, oh dear, John, do you live this high lifestyle? He goes, good God, no. but I can't afford it, the taxes, you know. I said, well, where could you cut back? I mean, you've got this beautiful house. He went, oh, yes, so I can't leave the house. And I said, and what about you've got this lovely Rolls Royce and a chauffeur? And he goes, I couldn't possibly do without my Rolls. And I went, well, I think that's what they're talking about when they say cut back. He said, well, they're not paying me very much per diem. And I hear you have a villa. I went, well, I do. And I tell you, I'd love to share it with you. You can have a whole wing of it. He said, oh, so nice. Thank you so much. And he came and stayed with me for 2 weeks. And it was adorable. Huh. I had a wonderful time with him. I adored him. He regaled us all these stories. And, you know, everything was, he was telling me about him and Larry when they did Romeo and Juliet, you know, and they alternated the parts of Romeo and Laertes, and I'm not Laertes, Mercutio.
Mercutio, yeah.
Yeah. And he'd always say, Larry was far better than me. He was much more athletic, you know. I just had the voice. And I went, yeah, but what a voice. He said, well, Larry's is a pretty good voice too, but he was so much more athletic, you know. And he'd always sort of...
There's something funny about Gielgud saying, I just have the voice.
Yeah, I just had the voice, a voice.
Okay. If that's how you see yourself, okay. At the time, the top tax rate in England was 83%, so it was pretty brutal to people making the kind of money that you guys were making.
And I bumped into Gielgud on 3rd Avenue. He was shooting Arthur. I didn't even know, you know. And he said, oh, Malcolm, have you seen the film? And I went, no, John, I haven't. He said, oh, frightfully good. I've seen it 3 times and I paid twice. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. He saw it 3 times and paid twice. And then somebody must have got to him to say, look here, it's an absolutely scandalous film. You can't go around saying you like it. So he then changed his tune and said, oh, frightful film. I don't know why I did it. Frightful.
Gil and Taye Diggs worked together on House on Haunted Hill. Now, I had never met Taye before we interviewed him here, but can I tell you, I really, really like that guy. I can see why Gil loves him so much. No wonder he gave Stella back her groove. He's a really great guy. Taye talked about overcoming stage fright as a young actor. Good thing he found a few strategies, because Taye also tells a great story about acting in a soldier's play off Broadway when one night Denzel Washington, who played the same part in the movie, came to watch Taye's performance. Finally, Taye shared with us the thrill of victory when he won lip sync battle singing Madonna's Vogue. He's very good.
I had been in one church play, sang in the gospel choir poorly, had crazy stage fright. But thankfully, you know, at Rochester School of the Arts, they broke me of that, at least enough to enjoy performing, and I kind of found my calling.
How did they cure your stage fright?
I think it was just the repetition. You know what I mean? It was, you know.
But the confidence that at least you had this down in your head.
Sure. Well, you know, you take classes with the same students that you're performing with and for.
So you mean the repetition of, well, just the community. Sure.
You know, practicing in class and then doing it on stage. And it's just, you know, I think, yes. Masters like Kobe Bryant will tell you, you know, if you do something 15,000 times, it doesn't matter if you're nervous or not. It's just muscle memory. So it was that, because I still get scared today, you know, but you know, as long as I have enough rehearsal, it is like a muscle and you just let it do its thing. There have been times when I've been so nervous that I've gone up on lines, or, you know, there was this one play, I was in a soldier's play off Broadway, New York City.
Sure.
And I think Denzel Washington was in the audience, and he was in the original, or the original movie.
You knew story. He was in the audience.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so and it took you out of your head a little bit.
100, a lot. It took me out of my head a lot.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put me in my head, actually, too much in my head. And I had this beginning monologue
You were sitting in the audience next to Denzel, watching you.
Oh, I was in his head, judging myself.
No, you were seeing your performance through his eyes.
Yes.
Oh, that's a lot of gymnastics inside your head while you're trying to act in a very good play.
Right. And I had this, like 5-page monologue, and I kind of tried to let my muscle memory take over. And before I knew it, I had started to repeat a certain part of the monologue. No. And I didn't realize it until So I had to while I was, this is where actors, I really give it up to actors, because while I was in the middle of repeating it, I had to figure out where I had gone wrong and how to jump back to where I needed to be without, trying to not let the audience figure it out. But I got through it. But the great thing is that once you flub like that, the rest of the show is a piece of cake.
Surely.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, that's good to know.
They don't do these much anymore, but it was like a chemistry test on screen that they filmed. And of all times to forget my lines, I remember this one scene, sitting across from Angela Bassett, holding her hand, and I couldn't remember how the scene began. And I remember looking at her, just smiling, and she just squeezed my hand, and I could tell through, she was telling me to just be okay, just relax.
Oh dear.
And I remember her squeezing my hand and kind of rubbing it. And then I was able to kind of fall back into my body and start. Because, I had to do the accent. And, I wasn't very, how do I say this? I was confident when it came to my talents, but not confident as a human being.
Sure.
So,
sure.
Once she
that was then. That was then.
Well, it's still, I'm still going to therapy for my self-esteem these days.
Well, I'm also in therapy and issues, but it feels like you're doing great, man. Just one, one guy who's wrestled with the very same things, and I feel it, and I feel that struggle. God, I feel that struggle.
Yeah,
anyway, sorry,
I gotta tell myself that most days.
You're doing great, man. You're doing great. You are a 2-time winner of the lip sync battle show.
Right.
These are just, when I found out these things about you, because having never met you before, these were just fascinating things that, acting schmacting, tell me about the lip sync battle.
Oh man. Well, that's one of those shows where, you watch it and you're having so much fun that you call them and ask if you can be on it. And I did so, and I wanted to make a splash and try to do something that I didn't think anybody else had done yet.
What's your secret? What's the difference between good lip syncing and great lip syncing?
It's the blonde wig and red lips with the stubble. That's what did it.
And what did you wear?
We worked with the very best of the best on Crypt, actors especially. Among our very favorite actors, we hired her 3 times. We liked her so much, was SHERRIE Rose. SHERRIE told a great story about writing and directing her first feature film. I hope I get the title right this time, Me and Will. And then getting the chance to have Oliver Stone back the movie, but with a deal-breaking caveat. What SHERRIE did in the story, it took guts and integrity. Check it out. We also talked about the writing process, what it was like working for William Friedkin, and what it was like doing an intense sex scene for director William Friedkin. SHERRIE was a great actor to work with, and she's a great storyteller too. Yeah, we love SHERRIE Rose.
Cassian Elways at the time was repping the film, and he set up a screening for Oliver Stone. So we went to Oliver Stone's office and screened the movie, and he wanted me to change the ending. And he watched the whole movie. We watched it with him, and I drove home, and I said, I may not ever be able to write, direct, produce, and star in another movie, and I don't want anyone else to mandate what my ending should be.
What kind of ending?
He kept doing this. The bad girl should live. The bad girl needs to live. I'll put my name on it, but you got to reshoot it and the bad girl has to live. And I'm like, yeah, that's not really the story I'm trying to tell. You know, I mean, it's hard to talk back to Oliver Stone. I mean, he's Oliver Stone, right? Yeah. But I have to have my own opinion. I have to live by my own creed. And so I said no to that. Sometimes I regret that, only because it could have been a sacrificial lamb so that I could have gone on to maybe make another film sooner. And I've been writing still, and I've now started raising money again to start making movies again, which is exciting for me. And I had to put that on hold for a little while because I became a mom, and that was important to me to be available to my son. And that was where I chose to put my time and energy. So, but now he's off at NYU, and he's at film school at Tisch.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's great.
So he's flown out of the coop. And
does he want to write or direct, or does he know yet?
I think he wants to write and direct. I think that's his focus. He's doing some modeling, and he's done some acting. He's a good-looking kid, but I think his focus is on writing and directing. He's got a really good eye for directing, and he writes very quickly. I introduced him to Final Draft when he was probably 16, and he just picked it up so quick. He's like, oh, drop down over here, over here. I'm like, oh, okay. Guess you don't need my help. You know.
I frankly, I'm a screenwriter. I'm a screenwriter guy. I have Final Draft and screenwriter. I can't stand Final Draft. I like screenwriter, but oh,
you like screenwriter? Yeah, you do.
Yeah, but that's a screenwriter argument.
Yeah, well, I think it's whatever. Yeah, it's whatever resonates with you, whatever helps you get it on the page.
Oh, yeah. I'm fussy about little technical details. Like I said,
right. Well, I'll tell you, I still write pen to paper, and then I write it as if it was looking like a script, and then I transcribe it later and write it that way. I can't. This doesn't resonate with me.
It's funny. The best class I ever took in high school was typing. And learning how to type was really everything. For the most part, I can think like this, and then it depends upon the nature of the keyboard. Different keyboards, some keyboards are just not acceptable. It's got
they don't feel right.
Everything has to flow from the fingertips through the keyboard. Dialogue. Yeah, a lot of dialogue gets written longhand. I don't know. It just naturally wants to go that way. It doesn't want to go that way. It wants to go this way. I don't know why that is. It's a mystery. Yeah.
I think once a writer, always a writer. I just have, I get some of the best scenes or lines just driving through the canyon here. I live out in Malibu, and I'll start laughing to myself. And, my son got used to me going, it's like, Mom, are you writing a scene in your head right now? I'm like, yeah. I mean, you want me to tell you about it? Sometimes he said yes. Sometimes he says no. But, I just start all these, characters are having an issue or something's happening. And then I'm like, oh, it's perfect. I got to pull over and write this down.
So the first time we hired Sherrie at Crip was for Billy Friedkin's episode on A Dead Man's Chest. It's about a rock guitarist who gets a tattoo that's a little too lifelike. So we have Billy Friedkin directing the episode, and we're now casting, and you walk into the room.
Yes.
Billy.
Yes. Danielle Ullman was my manager. She used to be married to Greg Ullman, Danielle Dell. She still is a manager, D2 management. She got me
in the episode.
Yeah. Yes. He's in the episode. And then I think I had suggested Steve Jones, and you guys hired him.
We did.
And
what did you do with your commission?
I never get commission. I never get the gig down. Sometimes I'll get a dinner or lunch out of something, but usually not even that.
Something.
So, but I remember Danielle telling me, be prepared. And I always, I try to always be prepared. And I knew if I was going to read for somebody like William Friedkin, I better be prepared. And I better be prepared to the point where if he throws other things at me, I'm ready to pivot and make those adjustments for him. And, you know, immediately, one of my first big auditions that I ever had, I read for, it probably was Parenthood. At the time, they didn't tell us what it was, but I read for Ron Howard down in Miami, right after I had done Miami Vice. Ellen, I can't remember her last name right now, but she brought me in the room, and I remember being prepared and Ron Howard thanking me for being prepared.
What did you do to prepare?
You know, I mean, well, first of all, I just also learned the dialogue. You know, I learned all sides of the dialogue. So even if the person reading on the other side of the camera dropped a line, I knew where to pick it up. You know, just that I was just, you know, I took it seriously. I learned it, you know, and was off script and ready to go. And then made some
once an A student, always an A student, eh?
Yes. And you know, I made some choices, right? So, and right or wrong, I committed to those and what they were. And I asked him, you know, what I mean, the character's name was Miss Vendetta, so I kind of knew that she was tough, right? And he allowed me to just play, and then he brought me to new places in the room, and you know, he thanked me for being prepared, and he basically said, you know, you're Miss Vendetta. And the casting director was not happy about that. And so like, hey, that's not true. We have other people to see. Other people are coming in. Oh, you guys work out that. I'm happy to do it. I'm available. You know, it's just so grateful, you know. And I always look at those experiences too, and that, you know, even if you don't get the opportunity to read for William Friedkin or something, you never know what's going to happen. And it's just awesome to meet people like that, you know, people that are talented, and like Ernest Dickerson was amazing to work with.
It's so true. The impression that you make today might not pay off today or tomorrow. It might pay off a couple days or weeks or months down the road, but that's the point.
Yeah, and you got to show up. I mean, a lot of the movies that I did in Thailand, the action movies, I mean, listen, they're not the best movies. They're not bad movies. I mean, they're whatever. But I was able to keep earning a living and keep working at what I love doing. And I worked with the same directors over and over again because, you know, I don't mess around and make them more stressed. I know they have enough to deal with. I'm there to help facilitate what they need.
The sex scene on a dead man's chest was Billy directed it rather forthrightly. He really had you guys going at it.
Yeah, he was really pushing us. That was a rough day. Doing any sex scene is hard, you know. And then he wanted it to be raw and gritty and making, you know, the other actor getting upset, you know, and stuff like that. So
Yul Vasquez.
Yeah, Yul. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he wanted Yul to just get more and more agitated and stuff. So he pushed us, and he pushed us when I was there with Steve Jones too. When I was like, you know, he killed her, like, you know, like screaming. You got to go deeper. Don't hold anything back. It's tough. You're vulnerable. People are, you know, the camera's on, you know, other people are going to be watching it later. You know, you want to look good. Those are never easy.
It's a work environment, but you're still naked and they're not.
Yes.
There's just something in the power structure of the room that seems, there's just an oddness to it.
Yeah. It's who you work with too. Yul was amazing. I mean, he's just a gentleman. With William, and I didn't expect this from William Friedkin either, I knew that his job wasn't to make me comfortable, and I accepted that.
Barry Primus was another guest who Gil knew, but I had never met before Barry did the podcast. And Barry was another delight. While he's appeared in movies like Boxcar Bertha, The River, Space Camp Mistress, and Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, Barry's mostly been a New York theater guy. He told a great story about the first time he auditioned for Jerome Robbins, who, despite that first audition, later became a friend. And he told a great story about Jerome Robbins and Zero Mostel. When you auditioned for Jerome Robbins, I saw an interview that you did where he described your audition as the worst audition ever.
Where did you see that? That's great. That's true. There's a book that quotes that. There's a book by Louis Zorch on auditions. I came to see Jerome Robbins that Anna sent me for. Anna sent me to meet two the people of my life. Jerome Robbins and Leah Kazan. Anna sent me to those people. So I came to see Sherrie and auditioned for this play called Oh Dad, Poor Dad, Mama's Hung You in the Closet.
Sure. Yeah, I'm so sad.
Well, I couldn't make head or tail of the goddamn script, but I had to meet Jerry. So they had given me the thing and I was looking at it. And then they called me in. Jerry was at the end of the long hallway sitting at a desk, nothing on the desk, just a little tiny desk. And I came walking in, he kept watching me with a cigarette, biting on the cigarette, looking at me. And then I read and he said, uh-huh. Now that's the worst audition I've ever heard. The worst. He said, what were you thinking? I said, oh, I don't know. Listen, Anna Sokolow sent you here. Anna says you're very talented, and Anna is somebody who knows things. Now, I don't know from listening to that reading whether you're either an idiot or you're extremely unique talent. I have no idea. But since Anna sent you, I'm going to put you in the play. Let's try to find this out. Don't ever do that again. He said, now get out of here. And I left. And that's how I got my job with Jerome Robbins, mind you. And then Jerry became a very important person in my life. So Zira Mostel, who was a theater animal beyond theater animals, you know,
Indeed.
Unstoppable theater animal, who I used to see in Ratner's restaurant down on 2nd Avenue. Remember, Gil? So
Sure.
great roles.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Fantastic waiters who would tell you off, you know, all the time. One time my father and I had the big menu. We were looking at it, and we looked at it for a few minutes. What do you want? He said, what do you want? What do you want? The waiter kept saying, come on, what do you want? I said, well, what's it? I think we'll have two, Barry, you're right, 2 mushroom and barley soups. He said, big deal. Grabbed the menu and walked off. They were incredibly fantastic characters, you know. Yeah. Nobody could fire them, nobody could hire them, you know. They just were there. That's it. You don't want it, you don't get it, you get it, you want it. Let's eat, let's go. Next. You know, that's it. They're in now. But Jerry was sitting in rehearsal with me. I was alone with him in the aisle watching. And he said to Zero would put his hand. I think it was Austin Pendleton was playing the other part and was playing the part, and he hands him a bowl or something. And Jerry was supposed to take the bowl and either maybe drink out of it or put it down. So when he handed it to him, Zero put his hand in it and went, oh, this fish. And he did the whole thing with the fish jumping out. And Jerry said, Zero, he yelled up on the stage, what? Would Zero say, what? He said, Zero, please. All right. Back. Reversed it again. Gave him the bowl, put his hand. Zero, come on. Let's move on. Let's go on. You know? No. So finally, after they let it go, they went by it. Now they had to run through the play, right? They had to run through the scene. And the scene comes up, and the guy, Austin, has the bowl in his hand. He's looking at Zero, and Zero's looking at the bowl, eyeing it, and Jerry leans forward, and Zero gets the bowl. Of course, he puts his hand, and he goes, and Jerry turns to me, and he says, isn't he great?
The movie and TV business attracts all kinds of creative people to it beyond just actors and writers and designers and directors. A lot of people who'd otherwise be scientists end up in show business. Hollywood heyday actress Hedy Lamarr famously helped invent the technology that ultimately led to radar. That's when she wasn't acting in movies like Ecstasy, Samson and Delilah, and Algiers. People like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Carl Sagan, and Bill Nye, they all learned how to work the camera just as well as they learned astrophysics. Charlie Fleischer is in that club. His parents saw him as Dr. Fleischer. He saw himself as Roger Rabbit, plus a lot of other great voices. Gil and I saw him as Wally Enfield in Demon Knight. However you see him, one thing you can't deny, Charlie Fleischer is a very intelligent guy.
Well, I'm part scientist and part artist. So the artist wakes up and says, wow, it's a beautiful day. And the scientist part goes, yes, but how does it work?
Now, when you know, as I said, you started in DC, and then your first, as you jumped out of the nest, your first goal was medical school.
Well, I thought I was going to do that before I really entered college, just as a child growing up. And are friends of my parents that always address my birthday card to Dr. Charles Fleischer. And, you know, it's kind of a typical Jewish boy. Yeah, you should be a doctor. What are you gonna do? Be an actor? What are you, crazy? So, but I always have had a love of science and scientists, and I have patented inventions. I have a paper on origin of gamma ray bursts.
What was your experience working with Bob?
I love Bob Zemeckis. He's one of the greatest ever. I mean, Back to the Future 2.
That's right. That's right.
Geez, there's a lot of different things that I work with him. Polar Express.
Sure.
Yeah, he's just a great guy and a great artist.
Yeah.
You know, his enthusiasm, and there's like some sets you're on, and you know, maybe a grip will have an idea and say, hey, well, what if you put that thing over there? I'm Frank Tolbert, and you're telling me how to direct. Get the fuck off my set. You know, but if somebody says something to Zemeckis, it's a good idea, I go, you know, he's just a beautiful human.
Yeah, we felt the same way. We worked with him on Tales from the Crypt for many years, and it was always a delight. Always great fun.
Yeah, great talent. And a great person. They don't always come into the same package, you know. Some people are really talented, and they just their talent maybe overpowers their dignity.
What was the process like of creating because the voice really comes out of character. The thing about that makes Roger Rabbit really such a great character is that you can feel his soul.
Well, and so it's the essence of any performance art, you know, or I would say any art, you know, your soul is somehow transmogrified into the medium. It could be, you know, a Kandinsky painting, or a piece by Mozart, or Beethoven's second movement.
Indeed.
You know, it's that transfer of soul.
But it's easier said than done.
Well, as is the case. It's easier sold than sold.
Well, there you go.
True enough.
I've known Mark Ivanir socially for years and years. Alas, we haven't worked together yet. But it's amazing what you learn about your friends when you suddenly have to research them for an interview. You learn that as much as you think you know them, they're even more interesting than you knew. As good work does, your work in Schindler's List got you more work. And eventually you ended up working with De Niro in The Good Shepherd. You won the Silver Bear Award at the Berlin Film Festival for that.
Yep. It took some time to get cast in it. It's another project that took a very long time until it happened. And then, so I had a meeting with him after I read for it. Then they asked me to come and meet with him while he was filming Meet the Fockers in Los Angeles. So we sat in his trailer and talked about the part. And what was funny is that I kind of, well, there's a few stories about that, but one of them was that in the audition, the original audition, I kind of added, because I'm playing a character that is being severely drugged. There's interrogation.
I told you my name.
Tell me your name
100 times.
Because we're not going anywhere. I just want you to know that. We are not going anywhere. Today, tomorrow, next week, next month.
He is your mo. I'm not.
Do you understand?
I can't
I'll be right in front of you.
Else.
The same position.
This is my name.
What is your name?
My name is Valentin Grigorich Milan. This is my name.
Tell me your name.
I don't have a different name.
Tell
I
it.
don't have it.
Tell it.
This
Tell
is
it to
my
me.
name.
Tell it to me again.
Valentin Grigorich Milan.
Tell it to me again.
Valentin Grigorich.
Tell me your fucking name! You can say we're gonna be here a long time. Shut up! Shut up!
I don't have a different.
Tell me your name. Tell me your name. Tell me your fucking name.
Всегда будет небо, всегда будет папа.
I remember De Niro's assistant calling me and says, so you sang this song in the audition. We want to keep that, but we don't want to get the rights for, I mean, we need the rights for the song, that we don't have that, but Universal gave us another song. And so here's the song. And I call him back 20 minutes later. It's like, look, I mean, De Niro most probably knows as an actor, if you choose something, there's a reason. And I chose this song for a reason, because it does something to me emotionally. The other one doesn't. So just if you can convey that to Bob. And literally 3 minutes later, I get a phone call from this guy. He says, Bob said, just stay with this song. He'll do whatever needed for you to have that, because that's the most important thing. And then it was an incredible, the whole shooting process was incredible. He was so very much tuned to what me as an actor, what I needed, including at a certain, I'm not going to tell the whole story, but including at a certain stage, just stopping there was a scene that was supposed to be done, and then they canceled it because of problems, financial problems and time problems and blah, blah, blah. And I called him and I said, again, look, that scene is really important to me for the last very significant scene that I have. So I don't know, of course, you're the director, you should do whatever, but I just wanted to let you know. And he stopped everyone that were getting ready for the new scene and all the light and the set and everything. And he said, no, we're going to actually do that scene because it's important. And that, which cost them, I'm sure, a lot of money, but that was him. He is really focused on what you as an actor need. And thank God the result was really good, because how he was so attentive and went for what
he trusted you.
He said, yeah, we were standing in the middle of the set, me, him, and the DP, who was, hindsight, I heard he was the producer's man, and he was representing the producer's position, and he was like, we don't need it, and it was me and him for 15 minutes talking about it, and then De Niro's like, who was silent, just looking at it, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna go with the actor. And everything stopped, and they went back, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful, and it seems like I'm gonna do. That's a bit of a. I didn't sign any NDA, but I think I might do a Netflix show with De Niro in the next couple of months.
Oh, cool.
We are just in negotiations for that, so that would be really exciting to get back. We haven't seen each other for 15 years, 14 years, something like that.
You know, having experienced the joys of putting the team back together again, it's good to put the team back together again.
Yeah, no, that's really exciting.
You were the fourth lead in the late quartet opposite Philip Seymour Hoffman, Christopher Walken, and Catherine Keener. That's another terrific piece of work.
That was an incredible, really incredible experience, because sitting with these three people was like going to school again, to acting school. I mean, that was 10 years ago, and that was about 20 years after my last acting school experience. But it was really, really sitting with masters and seeing them at work, and just wow, I need to remember that and that and that. Like, in particular, it's just the way all of them were so open. There was so much improvisation happening there, and listening. And I mean, Phil was just an amazing guy. I feel so bad about, of course, him going away. He was on the list of my best. If you put 5 best actors ever, he would be on that list. And so I feel kind of blessed being part of that event and working with these people. I mean, and here's a funny story about them. So we had a 1 week rehearsal period on which we would come in the morning and just do every scene and go through the scenes and rehearse them. And so we're sitting one morning, and Phil and Catherine, who were friends besides the shooting from before, they have like something is happening there between them. They're laughing and they're whispering to each other. And like an hour and a half into the thing, there's a break, and we would go and smoke a cigarette outside after like in between rehearsals. So all three of us step outside and smoke a cigarette. And I asked them, so guys, what's going on? What's the little thing that happening between you? And Phil is saying, so look, I mean, we were just talking about how everyone thinks we are like, I'm an Oscar winning actor and Catherine was nominated and we did this and that and then and that, and how insecure we are and how little we know, and what, we how stupid and not adequate we feel. And that, so the gap between that and what we are having when people are looking at us and talking, that was kind of funny, and we were kidding about that. And to me, it was so eye-opening that this guy who was nominated for 3 Oscars in the past 4 years and won one, and Catherine, who were in these, and that's what they feel. So, wow.
Gil worked with Brandon Routh on Superman Returns. They bonded immediately. When Brandon sat in for a conversation with us, I understood immediately why and how that happened, because I too immediately bonded with Brandon. There's just something, well, it's not Bond, is it? It's Superman. He's Superman. As Gil and I have discussed here, we never hire actors to act because the camera will see it and then we'll have to cut it out. We hire actors to be who they are as honestly as possible. The best actors, they're the most willing to put their raw emotions at the service of the character and the story. For most casting to work, there has to be a lot of the character in the actor to begin with. So when you go and cast Superman, since Clark Kent is a disguise and Superman the actual character, you have to find an actor who's more than a little like Superman just by being himself. Hey, why the fuck do we keep coming back to this character?
Because he's one person who in a way is saying it's so. For me, what Superman is, he's an alien. Came from another place. He's a human. He is the same emotional, whatever. All that structure is the same as us, right? So he's just able to sit in his own skin because he has powers that show that he has these powers that show that his inner. That he has a great power, so he can have great power internally also, and it's okay to share that inner fortitude or compassion or empathy and all of the things, the wisdom that he has, because he can justify it with his physicality somehow. And we don't as humans.
I really, absolutely so. I mean, he's invincible, but not emotionally.
Well, yeah. Mm-hmm.
He is vulnerable emotionally.
Yes.
And that's, in spite of all the superpower, he's still, yes, there's kryptonite, but there's also that attachment to other living creatures.
Yeah.
I think that's really what made our movie so different than any other movie about Superman before or since.
So fast forward to my college experience and going to IMTA, meeting my first manager at this, big cattle call, like thousands of people there. Oh, like 2% of them are actually going to get signed with somebody and become, do anything with it. 5.5% actually make any money at be me.
You were one of them.
I was one of them, and there are a couple other people, that are still working. My first manager, my first meeting was a gentleman, a lovely gentleman, Jeff Maroney, and he had a management company with Beverly Strong, and said I was at a meeting with him, and he was like, "Oh, so I think you got a great look, and you're a little green." And I was like, "Huh?" And then I found out what that meant. But you got a good look, and has anybody ever told you that you look like Christopher Reeve? And I was like, no. Well, you do, and I'm a big fan. And if there's ever a Superman movie or film, we're definitely going to get you in on that, because you'd probably have a good shot at that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And that was the first time I've ever had that I recall anybody mentioning that to me. So then fast forward to 2000.
What was all right? So, but someone says this thing to you, and you know what this franchise is. You know what that is. You had seen Christopher Reeve's work in Superman. Does this connect in any way in your head? Is this beyond fantastical? Does any part of you go, you know what?
Well, it does, because I'm from Iowa, because I am rather like Clark Kent, and have been, certainly was at that time in my life more even. It all made sense, and it's comedy, and I love that movie, and I had fond memories of watching that movie, but also throwing up, because I was so excited from jumping around, assuming before it came on TV, that I gave myself a migraine headache or whatever. I had a migraine headache. Who knows if I gave it to whatever. I had a migraine headache and was throwing up, laying on the couch with a metal bowl below me, throwing up through most of the movie. And that was my first Superman experience. But I had my pajamas, and my mom still has my Superman pajamas, a little cape. That's my first Superman memory and experience.
It touched you.
I don't know. I mean, yes, obviously it did, but I don't know the thoughts leading up to a 5-year-old kid, 6-year-old kid being excited to watch Superman. I remember jumping on. My brain says a couple jumps on the couch and this, and then sick and throwing up.
Yeah. But good enough. So you weren't up to the wire work at that point.
No, not yet. I also had a dream, probably around the same age. I don't know, from 6 to 8. It feels like age 6 to 9. I don't know. I had a dream that I was flying at a big metropolitan city. I was flying as a kid. I was, whatever age I was at the time, flying, and like this. And around me, also flying, were koalas that were wearing capes. And the movie was filmed in Australia.
Wow.
What is that? I have no idea. So putting a couple of those factors into, and my general naivete and glass half full attitude, went out to Los Angeles thinking, yeah, sure, it might happen. It could be Superman someday. Why not? Who better than I?
And Bryan Singer gets the gig. He comes aboard as the director of Superman Returns, and he had seen your audition for McG. Yes.
So, and that whole thing, which I will tell much more concisely, I can't. That's a whole nother podcast about this whole weirdness. I was working at Lucky Strike as a bartender. I just gotten a job there, and I dressed up for a Halloween costume because I needed to make money, because I was working Halloween night, and there was like $100 prize, $100 prize for the employee that dressed. And this Superman thing had kind of built for me a little bit, like it'd been like a. And so I dressed up as the picture that's, kind of a famous picture, or was back in the day, of me, a Superman shirt with, a suit over it. And I put a little wire in my tire and made it go back this way. And I got glasses, Clark, and I was Clark turning into Superman.
Yeah.
And I won the $100. It was huge. And my friend, Terrence, took a picture, or had a picture taken, and then he put it on his like Facebook or MySpace or whatever, Friendster or whatever it was back in the day. And that's a picture that people took and used. That was October of 2003. Prior to that meeting, I had I ended up at a birthday party with a woman who was the assistant to J.J. Abrams. Okay. I didn't know this at the time. I'm having a conversation with her. She's like, "Oh, Daniel, you look a lot like Superman. Has everybody ever told you that?" I was like, "Oh yeah, my manager." And I was, "Oh well, my boss is writing the next Superman movie." And I was like, "Oh really?" It's like, "Yeah, and you'd be great for it." I was like, "Really?" Well, no, I thought they were doing the Nick Cage thing. Like, I'm too old for that. She's like, "No, they're doing a whole nother thing. He's younger and all this stuff." And I was like, "Oh wow," my brain is just like on fire. I'm just like, if you're giving me your headshot, maybe I can give it to him. My boss, he's just the writer. He doesn't, I don't have any power necessarily, but maybe he can give it to the producer, John Peters. And it's like, okay. So the next day or 2 days later, I drive into ABC. I hadn't really been there much before. Driving on a lot, she got me a pass, and I walk into the Alias offices. And I find her, and I give her my headshot, and okay, thanks. And then I was like, "Oh, this is crazy," and I leave. And I said, "Well, who knows what that is?" I have a memory that John actually came to Lucky Strike, but now I don't know if that's real. I have a dream that John came with him and himself and an assistant.
John Peters, the producer of the movie.
At some point, yeah. At some point. I don't know when. I don't know if that's. I remember. Anyway, so that was October. I don't think anything happened in there. Then January comes around. Pilot season, busy. I get an audition for this show for CW called The Mountain. On it, I see that Mick G is a producer. Mick G is directing Superman Returns or Flyby at the time. And I go, "Oh, huh. I bet if I get a call back, he'll see me in the callback, and he'd be like, 'You should be Superman.'" So I worked really hard on the audition. It was for a character with edgy guy, like a cocky guy. I don't do that well, especially then. No edge, didn't know how to do that. I had a fine audition though, and they brought me back for a callback. I'm like, he might be there. He might be there. He wasn't there. But who? But
so close, so far.
But his producing partner, Stephanie Savage, was there. So I didn't know who Stephanie was, but we're talking, and then casting director stepped out of the room for a little bit, and we're talking, and she's getting a coffee, and she went to University of Iowa, and she was also an ice skater or something. We talked about ice skating. I work bonding about University of Iowa, and I'm just kind of gently charming, but I'm not saying anything about Superman, but I'm just showing all these qualities, I think, in my, who else? I was 23, 4, I don't know, out of my mind. And then I left. And my manager calls me a week later, and he's like, "I had some good news and bad news." And I was like, "What do you want first?" And I was like, I guess the bad news. She's like, "Well, you might want to pull over." I was like, "Okay, well, the bad news is that you didn't get the job." And I was bummed because they thought maybe they could write a different part for me because I just wouldn't fit the mold of the character I needed. But it didn't work out, and I needed a job. But the good news is they want, Mick G wants to meet with you. They're setting up a meeting for you to meet with Mick G. So I literally created my own meeting. I mean, I did. Would I have seen him otherwise? I don't know. Through the natural casting process, possibly, but with very different energy. I would have been coming in. So then I had a meeting with him about 30 minutes. We talked nothing about Superman. I left. I'd met John there. I think he was in the office. I might have met you too, Gil, but I didn't know your name, and right. I knew John because the assistant had talked about John. And then I later came back and read with the casting directors, and then read a callback with McGee, and then a screen test, and that's where I met Gil at the screen test, and then I didn't get the job, and nobody got the job, and then I was destroyed, and my life went, no, I mean, I was like, oh, I was this close to the sun and I burned up before I got there. And then Friday, the 13th of August 2004 rolled around and everything changed.
Indeed it did. See you next time, everyone, and happy holidays. The How Not to Make a Movie podcast is executive produced by me, Alan Katz, by Gil Adler, and by Jason Stein. Our artwork was done by the amazing Jody Webster, and Jason Jody, along with Mando, are all the hosts of the fun and informative Dads from the Crypt podcast. Follow them for what my old pal the Crypt Keeper would have called terrific crypt content.